Hey church, it's Matt, and I'm here to share with you a couple of thoughts on Sabbath Sunday. Growing up on a really healthy dose of Disney stories, I think that's clear if you know our family. I really had a front row seat to really great storytelling, be it Lion King or Sleeping Beauty, and this has kind of developed into my lens of how I see the world and creation. And I've noticed a couple of things. Today in our world, in our culture, we have this really strange relationship with this idea of conflict. In one sense, we are obsessed with it, right? We flock to this. We initiate it on message boards, and in the comment threads and in texts, or we'll spend our entire Monday night watching reality television. People fighting with each other, over each other. I mean, let's just be honest. We built an entire industry and funded every Thursday, Friday, and Saturday at the movies based on conflict. And yet, in our own lives, we run from it. The Bible says that our live story is our testimony. But if that's the case, if our lives are a story, then that means that they're not exempt from the only law that exists in story, which is conflict and tension will arise. Filmmakers and storytellers use this idea of this paradigm called the hero's journey all the time. And it ends in new revelation and new understanding and often rewards. And the problem is that we want the hero's glory without the journey that comes along with it. Now, I'm not suggesting that you go out and find conflict on your own. Believe me, it'll find you all by itself. The shadows will come in. Maleficent will crash the christening. It's gonna happen. And so I gotta wonder, in a world desperately seeking sanctuary from conflict, in a world desperately seeking hope, where's the hope in that fact? That it will find us? Well, here's the answer. The answer to Maleficent is Merriweather. So before we get into Merriweather, let me actually get into Psalm 23, because herein lies the promise. Psalm 23, 4 and 5 says, "Even when the way goes through Death Valley," Peterson paraphrases, "I'm not afraid when you walk at my side. You serve me a 6-course dinner right in front of my enemies." Other translations will actually say, "You set before me a table in the presence of my enemies." And I can't help but think of that opening of Sleeping Beauty. Maleficent comes in and she crashes the christening, and everybody is terrified of the curse that she's set forth onto this innocent baby. And while they're all worrying what's happening and are worrying about this curse and the spindle of a spinning wheel and everything else, there's this little fairy in the corner that everybody has forgotten about. The other 2 fairies have already blessed this princess with beauty and with song. Merriweather hasn't gotten to give her gift yet, but she's in the room. She's in the room when Maleficent comes in and delivers her curse. And she tells the king and the queen, "Look, I can't undo what just happened, but what I can do is I can give my blessing." And Merriweather bestows a blessing not of death, but of sleep, that'll be awoken with love. And I can't help but see the similarities of our own lives. We are terrified of the conflict that's in this moment, and we forget that the blessing is already there. God has already set the table. One visiting pastor that I saw years ago said, "If you can see the enemy, the table's even closer." It's funny, this is in the Psalm, but then Paul in Romans chapter 8 also references this kind of blessing. In Romans 8:28, in the Message, Paul writes, "That's why we can be so sure that every detail in our lives of love for God is worked into something good." This promise that's in the Psalms is answered and reinforced by Paul in Romans. That God sets a table in the presence of our enemies, and that all of the things work together for good for those who love him. That's the promise. That in the midst of the conflicts and the shadows that come into our lives, there's hope. God can't change what happened to you, to me. The shadows will come. Thus is life. Bible promises that. The difference between believers and everybody else is that in the darkness of that room, when the enemy comes in, we have a table that we can sit down at and be nourished and fed and encouraged, and we can stand on those promises. Shadows will come, so sit at the table.